Hey everyone, and welcome to this patch notes rundown of patch 9.05. Those patch notes actually have just been released, I think 5 or 10 minutes ago, but I just had time and wanted to start right into them since they are gonna be released in around about 2 to 4 days already. So I think there won't be too many changes, especially since there are some balancing changes, but there's no unit coming. But there's a lot of other fun stuff gonna be implemented to the game. First of all, one news once again. Obviously, as every month, there's going to be another Nova Cup for June. This time it's taking place at the 25th and 26th of June. Sadly, I will likely not be able to participate, but I will rewatch the games as soon as that's possible. If you want to sign up, go check out the thread for it. Go check out the tournament Discord. For that purpose, you will find all necessary information there. So, first big thing is actually the Game Coach 2.0. And honestly, I did not have the Game Coach active at the moment. For those who don't know now what the Game Coach is, it's this little icon you have in your game that is telling you either what went wrong in your games afterwards, or that you played good, or that might give you tips within the game, like, okay, you had this amount of unspent gold, or be aware you didn't have any units for wave 4 at the end of the game, stuff like this. Now there's some sort of cosmetic, they call it characters or personalities for the game coach, and the first two that are going to be released are the cheerful game coach and the Darth game coach, and there will be more soon. And as you can already see some examples here, we have the cheerful game coach with some emotes, there's some tips and tricks there, and overall every of those game coaches has more than 20 or has 20 dialogue lines, so there's some content behind it. Honestly, if I have a look at those examples, this cheer game coach looks hella awful, just gonna be very annoying, but this Darth game coach gonna meme a bit around. That's exactly what I need. And those game coaches are gonna be unlockable in the store. I do not know yet whether this is gonna happen with Premium Essence or Essence. We will find out. But there's a benefit besides the game coach personality you unlock is also the profile picture. So the card of the game coach, either the cheerful game coach or the Darth game coach, are going to be unlocked for you in the profile as well, and then you can take it either as a monument slot or as a profile picture. You won't be able to donate those to the guild or get those in a card rotation. The only way to achieve them is by buying them. I do not know whether this has to happen with premium or normal essence. I would be interested though if that actually is available more often, because, well, you can only select a monument for each card you have. So since you likely only get one game coach card, like one Darth game coach, for example, you might only be able to get one game coach or one specific game coach as a monument. Maybe there's an alternative to get more of them. I don't know. All right, that's about the game coaches. I think if you want to read more, just check it out. Especially for new players, important is tutorials. And I think one of the biggest problems Legion does have at the moment is that it has a hardcore start, right? It's very rough. You do not get a lot of knowledge with the tutorials so far, and a lot of additional training via videos, streams, or asking out players in Discord or in game might be needed to actually get you started with Legion. I think this is one of the biggest deficits the game has. And finally, we get some tutorial and game manual addition. First of all, we have a fighter position tutorial. Fine, right? Everyone should play such a thing. But on top, there's the game manual. And you can reach the game manual in the codex. There's another section. So in the codex, you have the king, the unit, the mercenary section, the legion spell section, etc. And there's now a game manual section as well. There's a lot of helpful tips and tricks. I already had a look at them in test server. If you want to do that as well, go check out the PTR server you can reach in the Steam library by changing the server. So a lot of helpful tips and tricks. You can see it here, how to control the camera, what are the shortcuts, what does the scoreboard do and where do I reach it, how to ping, etc. So there's a lot of helpful information, just a few phrases with pictures, so everyone can easily understand and look up that again in the game. Because now you can as well reach the game codex even more easily within a game. I don't know exactly where it says that. Well, you would just have to trust me now. Instead of going escape and then there was a banner profile, now there's a banner codex. You can just click on it and reach the codex to look up unit stats. You can look up mercenaries, king spells, or the game menu. Let's get on with new content. First of all, we have a new legion spell, which is the Glacial Touch. A fighter that will be applied on this, similar to something like Pulverizer for example, will slow movement speed by 80% for 3 seconds on its target, and on top, if the target dies while chilled, which means if the target dies while it does have this effect, it explodes, dealing 120 pure magic damage in a very small area. Two things about this. First of all, I think it's pretty cool that you have this AoE on kill effect like you have with the Doomsday right now, and especially since it only has to be chilled, it doesn't even have to die by the unit with a spell anymore. So you might just take a unit that either has some sort of AoE damage like a Mask or Trinity Archer. Be aware please that such a buff or debuff will only be applied to one target at a time. So a Mask that deals 3 attacks will still only debuff one target, but since the attacks are more or less random, more targets might be applied at the same time. So let's say in 3 seconds the Mask deals 3 attacks, right, on 3 different targets. You might have the chance to get this debuff down on 3 different units, which could be in theory very good. I didn't test the spell as it is like this now, and I didn't test it yet as it is like this. I'm really interested in the mechanic itself. I really like the idea. The problem I have with it is the movement speed slope. And for those who don't know about this, very, very far back, Legion almost exists for 5 years publicly now. There was the chance to, or there was different movement speeds in the game already. And different movement speeds cause a lot of problems, and caused especially a lot of problems with pathing and targeting. Just imagine, some units have now different move speed than others. They might get attacked later, and this way, for example, a tank you send in front will get slowed down, and all the other units will path in front of the tank and might get attacked first, just as one example. So the spell can either be very good for you in case of slowing down a tank and attacking the wave instead of the tank, or it could as well be very bad for you, since you might just target a unit that comes from the split and all the other reaches you first and kills you or whatever. So there's a lot of problems that might happen with pathing and targeting that way. I hope it's not going to be too critical. I always am afraid of such changes because of this issue, and especially if you train your openers in Sandbox, if you train how the best split works out and stuff like this, pathing and targeting changes in the game always mix that up. So I'm not a big fan in general of such changes, but I'm very favored by this AoE splash damage ability. We have 2 very cool looking new skins, especially the first one, the Arctic Varg. Holy moly, that one looks amazing. We do already have the Lioness skin, now we have the Varg skin as well. Looking really forward to play that one, it looks amazing. And we do have the Molten Royal Guard. It's some sort of mixture, I think, from the Oathbreaker that looks similar, and the Mech Golem, I think. It's something in between. And that face down there seems to me like such a tree totem. You might see from some films or cultural stuff, I don't know. I like it. I have to say that the Varg is a lot cooler, but this skin definitely cool as well. Well, as always, there's some improvements and fixes. We all know that, but let's jump into the game palette, which is most important for me. First of all, talking about Legion spells. I think I stated it enough lately in the game, in the patch review and the balanced tier list, that the Legion spell counterattack is the worst Legion spell in the game at the moment. You immediately gain 45 Mythium now, and afterwards, for every league, you gain another 40 Mythium. Compared to other offensive spells, this is still by far the worst spell. I still think it's underperforming. It is not underperforming, but it's gonna perform bad. I still think this spell is not gonna be played. Honestly, I don't think I ever saw this spell played besides somebody wanting to try it out and just saying it's trash afterward. So I'm pretty sure counterattack still is in a very bad state. Next one we have Giant Snails. Giant Snails getting some buffs. Giant Snails in general are very strong. We just had a Excel that showed the effective HP and damage for mercenaries, and Giant Snail does have a very high rating on those. But the biggest problem with Giant Snails is that at the moment, with all those changes we have, AoE is quite important, right? We have Flower being very dominant, Doomsday very dominant. We do have the option of sometimes even going Red Eyes again. And against AoE, obviously, it doesn't matter too much whether a Giant Snail has a little bit more damage or a little bit less, or a little bit more HP here and there, because you're gonna attack all the wave anyway. But I overall like the idea of buffing it a bit more. I think as an offensive spell, it's underperforming a little because games are quite short, so you do not have the option to send as often as you would like to do with this buffed snails. So I think the buff is nice. I think though that those units aren't as strong because of the meta currently, and less because of its death. Next spell, hey, Magician. I think that's the 5th, 6th Magician buff in a row. I still remember when the Magician first got changed, I think it was 0.35. Now we have 0.55 mana per second. Well, it's gonna reach Starcaller soon. I think slowly but steadily this is gonna be a very, very strong spell. The problem is at the moment there aren't too many mana combos. You do have the Starcaller Steed, which is quite frequently played in high elo. Obviously the same with Starcaller on top is very strong as well, but apart from that, you do not play a lot of mana combos. Sometimes you want to have Steeds with Gates. So for all the combos you would play with mana currently, Magician is definitely a good pick. For all the combos you do not play with mana anyway at the moment, you still won't play Magician because mana units are just too slow in some cases currently. And last but not least, we have Overwork. Overwork getting changed a little bit. Wave 12. Now the worker production reduction is gonna be lowered from 35% to 30%, which is a buff for Overwork. I think the main problem with it was that you did have those situations where 11 and 12 matter so much, but with a long wave 12 and Overwork, you just ruined all the benefit you could have had due to Overwork and the big send on 12, for example. So I think this worker reduction, the worker slow reduction, is actually a good way to go. Next time we have the fighters. And with the fighters, I'm really curious because some of them I can totally understand, but others with the PV, I actually didn't think they're gonna be in such a spot. So we have PV and Veteran both getting nerfed a little bit on the HP side with the argumentation that they are very strong tanks. Obviously, right? They're cheap arcane tanks, that's pretty good. But they also have clutch DPS. And honestly, I do not see the clutch DPS of PV. I can agree that Veteran boosted is quite a strong holding option on waves 7 and A, so you do have those possibilities to hold since you usually wouldn't hold just due to the boost and the way either killing the units fast or sniping some sense. But it's still an ability that you have to spend gold on, right? I don't know. I felt they were in a good state. Apparently, the data says something else. They have high pick rate and high win rate. I think high pick rate comes because, well, it's a tier 1 unit, and as you get Veteran as a tier 1 unit in your role, you do take it. I mean, it's obvious unless you get better alternatives. The high win rate obviously speaks for itself. Next on Sakura, getting changed a little bit, less health, less damage, and there was a bug fix where it got double stacks after wave 10 already and not after wave 11. I actually always thought after wave 10 you get double stacks, but apparently I was wrong at that point. Honestly, I don't like this unit. I do like Chloropixie, I do like the Seedling, the idea behind it, but Sakura is such a slow unit. You have to overvalue early on, you rely on a teammate, it's just a slow and weak unit in the early game for my playstyle. I know a lot of safe players like it for exactly those reasons I hate it for, but I want to play aggressive early games, I want to play snowbally early games, I want to league a little bit in the early game in order to get more time for my worker, and Sakura is exactly the unit I shouldn't play in that. So, well, fine, Sakura, good. I can't comment too much. Well, one unit that had to be here, right? If you nerf Kiwi and Veteran, you have to nerf Gargoyle as well. I mean, Gargoyle is the unit if we talk about wave 3 holds. Gargoyle once again getting a nerf to. I think this is a 4th nerf as well within a time of, I don't know, 6 months, maybe 9 months, but we had a lot of nerfs to Gargoyle's HP, which is rough. I mean, it just has to be good on 3, right? It has to perform well on 3, being arcane and magic, plus having this damage reduction. They have to be good there, right? Alright. One unit I still consider being very weak is the Pyro. You do now have a little bit of a reduction in the attack speed, which means a little bit of a DPS reduction. But as a deal, you do no longer have reduced damage to flying units. I don't know. I think the damage output of Pyro already is underwhelming because you do have strong Mole, you do have strong Pack Leader, you do have strong Hermit, all those counter a Pyro. Obviously Mole and Hermit countered even more, and you do have usually quite a large sense, so they might just overrun the Pyro, and Pyro and other AoE units are usually old or League All. And there's only 2 waves that are flying that actually matter, right? You have, no, there's actually only 2 waves that fly. You have wave 4. Well, wave 4 with Pyro, I don't know. Usually you hold it unless your teammate, your opponent goes try hard with the Hermit and you didn't build properly. So you don't need it there. So the only notable wave is 17, and I don't know. Well, you had to commit on Pyros on 16 then. And then you should maybe beat that 17. I can't really say, because you do not build Pyros if not for 16. So either you misread the send, your opponents outplayed you, or you should maybe be bad on 17, but therefore rather have a better Pyro and the other waves. I don't know. I don't like this change. I'd rather have Pyro buffed a little bit instead of the nerf. Fine. Alright. Second patient here that we see each patch, Magician and obviously Sky Queen. We have a massive DPS buff this time. Another 4.4% more damage. This guy's more attack speed. Well, what should I say? Yeah, it slowly is getting to a spot where it is good. As soon as it can hold a 40-60 cent only with an addition of a Steed or Infiltrator on 3, I think the unit is gonna skyrocket again. I already played some games where you can really say that Sky Queen isn't too bad at the moment. If you have some decent tanks, you will have a very nice 1-14. But afterwards, Sky Queens are sometimes just a little too weak in terms of scaling, but there are already options. Mudman is a very good add. You have the Steeded Tempest that synergize very well with Sky Queen. One unit, well, honestly, it's just true. Cat is OP. It's one of the strongest units in the game for waves 1-10. There's nothing to add. That is exactly what Cat is. Why is Cat that strong in the early game? Well, first of all, you have a healing ability. And the healing ability in the early game is always quite important because the incoming damage is quite low. But a heal can just give you enough sustain to clutch a wave with very low value. So you have the heal ability. You have the arcane protection for 3, 7, and 8, which is important. You do need some source of arcane protection, or at least a good unit for those waves in the early game, in order to maintain your continuous push. And what's even more important, Cat is basically the perfect mix, or the perfect money slot between a tier 1 and a tier 2 unit. Tier 1 unit, the most expensive one, is 25 gold. The cheapest tier 2 unit is 35. And well, you do have Cat, 1 stack is in between for 30 gold. This is just perfect, right? You do pay the unit for 60, fine, but you will manage to do that sometime. But then you can just give it a little bit of feed here, a little bit of feed here, 30 gold, 30 gold, after you already pushed a worker. Fine, you do have this flexibility with the Cat. You can spend little money for great effect. This is what makes the Cat that strong in the early game. And I think a small nerf like this little bit of attack speed is well, a unit I personally do not like as an arcane tank, and I actually never like as an arcane tank, is Canopy. Well, Canopy has to be slightly weak as an arcane tank. No shit, it is based on regeneration. I just said it, right? You want regeneration in the early game, not in the late game, because the unit with regen is just not able to out-sustain huge incoming damage. That's exactly the case with Canopies. This HP buff is gonna be once again mega awesome for 7 and 8. Later wave, it still won't matter, especially since you have to think about the fact that of this HP pool, 4,800 and now 4,850, the Canopy will only start with 50%. So it did start with 2,400 HP before. So that buff is basically only half of what it says here. Alright, coming to overperformers, or staying at overperformers in the early game, Honeyflower. I think it's an open book, right? Honeyflower early game, Honeyflower Aqua, Honeyflower Mask, death caps on 16. What should I say? They're nuts, right? They are the nuts. It's one of the best pushing early game openers, so a nerf here is quite needed. They name it, especially with cash out, you had the option to go 6 worker flower with just a 20 gold tier 1 ad, and hold a snail in some cases, even as a flower. Well, that's just okay. We talked about it before, right? We can already see we have nerfs on all the significant AoE. We have pyro nerfs. Well, pyro isn't even significant AoE. We have nerfs on Honeyflower. Now, finally, we have nerfs on Doomsday Machine. So the developers are aware of the fact that AoE is dominant at the moment in the meta and with the stand size. And well, we do have another nerf on Millennium. We have attack speed and AoE nerfs. I think Doomsday is that high win rate. Why? Because you have 14 as a very strong wave, and 14 Doomsday is quite broken, and you do have a Doomsday APS combo, which is just outstanding on a lot of waves due to this AoE effect. I can totally agree that Doomsday is overperforming. I do not think that the attack speed nerf is needed. Maybe only go for the AoE nerf first, because this is the problem for the Doomsday Machine. But let's see, maybe this is, I mean, it's just a very small change in attack speed, so probably fine. Alright, a unit that is underperforming at the moment, Angler and Bounty Hunter. Well, there's not much to say. They're underperforming at the moment because they're weak early game units. People care about stacks too much. You should not care too much about those stacks, because in the late game they would just get shut down in a lot of cases anyway, unless you're getting hard overvalue. I can totally agree there are HP buffs needed, but I'm actually surprised by the amount of HP buff, because a 70 HP buff, that's pretty good. That's a quite high buff for a Bounty Hunter especially, which might make it a more viable opener these days. Growl getting a small nerf. Well, like, I think against a snail it might now leak with almost any tier 1 ad, but I'm not sure about this. I would have to test, but I'm pretty sure that snailing a Growl on 2 now will be a lot more common, which is a little buff for an exec opener. King Claw mana regeneration increased. Fine, I think King Claw was almost not played at the moment. Just because there's a lot of HP per gold stats in the effect it does have. So compared to other tanks, it does have fully HP per gold values. Next on, Sora Achaya getting an attack speed nerf. I think they're still going to be very, very good because you want them as your tanks, right? You want to put 13, you want to put 16. You want this dodge value in terms of buffing with a chieftain or a titan. So I think they're still going to be in a very, very good spot. Well, I don't know about this one. They will now only heal Soulgate and Hellgate if no other injured units heal. This might actually be a straight up nerf to the unit in some cases. So let's say you do build Sea Dragons together with Gates. You do want them to heal your Gate in order to get more summons out. But if they will never heal your Gate, because somewhere there will always be a unit to heal, right? There will always be a unit that is missing 2 HP because a lizard attacked it. I really dislike it. I think you should maybe change it that it doesn't heal the Gate unless it would die with the next summon to make sure it does maintain the spawns. Maybe that would be a better alternative, but at the moment this would just mean doing a life miner combo with Gate. Obviously is only good if you're staying on or overvalue because you just have a lot of focus on magic damage if you combine those units, but the overall synergy might actually be lost. Right, let's get to Mercenaries. The wave, imps, DPS unchanged, damage going up significantly, the attack speed going down, which is nerfing the pack leader imp combo. For synergy, fine. Pack leader imps at the moment the best send in 90% of the cases on non-range waves. Or non-range and boss waves. Fine. That synergy needed a nerf. I think it's still going to be very broken due to the overkill aspect, due to the aspect that natural armor and fortified armor are very significant for waves 11, 12, natural for 13 as well. So imps are still going to be very good with their magic damage on those waves. And well, last but not least, getting a buff on the wave that isn't a wave at the moment, wave 18, the Whale Chiefs. They are hardcore underperforming. I rarely see a game where you do send on 18, and if you do so, maybe the sends are 1k plus, because otherwise you do not change anything in the standings. So you get a attack speed nerf, but in as a change of that, you do have the 40 area of effect damage every third attack is going to change to 100 single target magic damage and 40 area of effect magic damage every third attack. So going a little bit back again to the single target damage buff, but with a little bit of an addition to the 40 area of effect magic. So you do have a light bit of AoE plus a larger part of single target addition. Once again, some kind words to the end. If you didn't leave a review yet, make sure to do so. Campaign, if you're interested in that, will be released around about the new winter. They are working on it now. Fall or early winter is the date, or is the time they might be able to finish it yet. So be prepared for that. I hope you like the Patchnotes rundown. Overall, I have to say I really do like the patch. The problems are getting addressed, right? You do have it with the Millennium, with the flower, you do have it with the cat, and so on. There are some things I'm a little bit unsure about. For example, the Pyro, I'm not really favoring that one, but you do have some nice balance changes. You do have some good content with the 2 new skins and the game coach upgrades here. And very, very important, I think, to grow the player base is the new game menu that is really helpful. It looks really good. I think it's even better than the tutorials are because it's just on the point, short information, picture with it, bam. That's how you need to pass information. I think it's pretty well made. Hope you liked the rundown. See you next time. Bye bye.